Welcome back again. So I am Dr. Daniel Handysides, although most of you know me as Danny. And again, it's my privilege. That's the hashtag we're using for this series. It's my privilege to carry on these conversations. And today we have Beatriz Cruz, and we're just going to talk to her a little bit. So Beatriz, tell me who you are and how do you know me?
Yes. So, well, my birth name is Beatriz Adriana Moreno, but I quickly learned moving from Texas to Michigan that I was going to be Beatriz. And I did not know how to say Beatriz when I moved up here. What I've learned. And then it went from Beatriz to B because a lot of people were struggling because I still would say my name is Beatriz, because that's my name.
Yeah.
But I have known you, I wouldn't say, time flies by, maybe 2 years from
about that.
Our city. Yeah. So we go to the same church and your girls are lovely. I'm hoping one of them is the youngest.
I'm totally game with that. David would be perfect. So right off the bat, I butchered your name. That's
yeah, but I've grown up, listening to it, so I'm fine.
You're fine. But so that sort of brings into, just those subtle overtones of race and racism. And what is your personal experience with racism?
So, well, again, coming from a border town in Texas where everybody spoke Spanish, you would go to school, your teachers would speak Spanish, everybody pretty much was Latino, maybe one or two kids were not, but somehow they had ties to somebody who spoke, Spanish. So coming up here, we come up here and we would just come up for the summers to migrate, just, following the crops. A lot of people in our neighborhood down in Texas would do that, and they would always, invite my father to come up. And back in that day, that's when kids were still able to work in the fields. So being that there was 5 of us, and then my parents were like, you guys can make a lot of money, because everybody would be able to work. And so we did. We came up, and oh my goodness, we hustled all summer working so hard, and we would save up enough for the whole winter. So back to Texas, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so my dad was doing the work. And so we did that for a couple of years until we finally decided to stay. Must have been like in the early 90s. So I've been here for 30 years. And so I went to school, and then I went to Leland where, there wasn't that many migrants, they would come up for the summer, then they'd take off. I mean, a lot of them wouldn't stay to going to school. So I was, the only Latino girl in my classroom. And I was like in the 4th grade when we stayed here just till November for apple season. And, the kids were great. I know I would kind of get a little bit of looks, but, of course I stood out. I was coming from Texas and I was so dark, and then working all summer out in the fields. I mean, I think it was pretty dark. I'm at my lightest right now. Yeah, it was different, and getting used to just speaking English all the time was also difficult because, I didn't know a lot of what some words meant. And so, when somebody would be speaking to me, even now, they're speaking to me and I'm interpreting everything. And that's just, when you're bilingual, you're constantly interpreting. And it's not that I'm not, listening or that I'm slow. It's just that I'm processing what you're saying. And so at school, I was very, very quiet. I was super shy, but, I was taking in everything that, people were saying, and it was a different culture. And then, like I said, I went from being Beatriz to being B because, the teacher has said, that's easier to say, and you're going to be B. And I was like, okay. And, now that I'm grown up, I know that it changes who you are, it changes your identity, by somebody else saying, this is who you're going to be now. And everybody still, I'm okay with people calling me B because I've learned that, it was something that it's unknown. People, if they change your name, it was just to try to help out, and it was an easier way for everybody to be able to say your name. And so I understand that part, but I also understand, like how it changed who I was, it was like, so it's not okay to be Beatriz, And so, but I love Leland. All of my siblings, we all graduated from Leland, and I think we were the only Latinos in our graduating class. And then more as, you know, we got older, more migrants started to come up or started to, you know, stay year round. And then, you know, what happens, we tend to like go into this little, you find, you know, people that you have that bond and who understands who you are, and, you know, your conversations are similar. And so, as I went through high school, that was mainly, a lot of my friends were Latinos. And, you know, it wasn't that we, I guess, separated by choice. You know, it was more kind of just how we felt comfortable. And, you know, I love Leland. I hold it dear to my heart. That's where my boys go to school. I just remember this one incident in high school where we were all speaking Spanish. And again, being that I had been there since fourth grade, you know, I knew that my classmates were not racist or anything, but those new migrant kids that were coming in, you know, felt as they were targeted. I know one teacher had said, you know, do not speak Spanish. Other kids feel uncomfortable. You know, if you're going to be in school, we rather just you speak English. So, you know, when you're a kid, you don't know if, I'm like, oh, okay, am I not supposed to speak Spanish? You know, is this bad? But, you know, I get the part where, you know, people didn't understand the language and maybe felt that we were talking about them, not knowing that that's what we felt comfortable in, because at home, that's all we would speak. It's just Spanish. So it comes easier, you know, it just flows more natural. And it was just until I got older, now as an adult, that I saw more of what like racism, and not so much in my county that I have experienced it, but it's going like to Traverse City where I experienced more of racism. And I don't know if it's just because it's bigger or the lack of some individuals not being exposed to other cultures, you know? Mm. But I know, like, to me, where I face it more is like when I go into stores and, you know, people will like look at other people to try to help them first. And I'm there like waiting, and, you know, before I wouldn't say anything because I was like, you know, I'm not going to say anything. Maybe they didn't see me. I would always try to justify like, maybe they didn't, you know. But, you know, now I do know I found my voice, and, you know, I'll say, excuse me, I was here. And so that's just, you know, once we deal with people like that, we try not to shop at that store for some time. But then I tell my husband and my boys, you know, like, you know, we got to give people an opportunity, and, you know, let's go back and see if things have changed. And most of the time, you know, we'll email the store, hey, this is what happened. They'll reach out and, you know, apologize. And so then that's when we give them that little couple of 3-4 months break. And then we'll go back to kind of just test to see if really talk to their employees. And we usually do see a difference. You know, we do see a difference of how we're greeted and how we're treated, and not so much like just pretend they're not there. And I don't know if it's because they think we don't have the money to buy stuff, or, I mean, I don't get it, you know?
Yeah.
But, mm-hmm.
And you said a couple of things so Traverse City is interesting because it's like 97.8% white in the city. And I think when we moved here, it was hard because, you know, coming from California, a very culturally diverse place to here, and coming from Canada originally is a very culturally diverse place. I remember we were in a store and there was a guy and in front of us was a Chinese lady, and he said, oh, we're being overrun by Chinese people. Traverse City's crazy. And I was like, really? Like overrun? Like there's like maybe 100, maybe 200. Like, I don't know the exact numbers, but you sit in there going, I would love if we had more Chinese food and Thai food and Filipino food restaurants. It'd be wonderful if you had more diversity. And I wonder, when you said as a young kid, you were one of the only Hispanics or Latinas in the community, did you think that racism increased as that visible presence grew? Did you, because it may be easy, you know, if there's one Hispanic girl in the class, then the class is like, oh, you know, we can be friends with B. She's so unique. She's so special. But then maybe as the class grows, people got more uncomfortable. Do you feel like that may be the case too?
And so I know, like, you know, as, you know, more middle school, I was seeing a bigger wave of migrants coming in. And so they were coming from, you know, some of them bad neighborhoods. So, you know, they come, again, if you don't know someone's story, you know, you're not going to understand why this individual is behaving this way. And so I had friends, they were lashing out and were very aggressive and physical, and they always wanted to fight. And again, I, knowing their story, knew that they came from a place where you had to defend yourself, or if not, you were going to be the one being picked on. And so, having to then also be that, like, I felt like I was that middle person, like, yeah, so that's what you have to do over there to survive. But here, people actually talk, and they're going to try to be like, okay, let's see what we can do to find our happy place. And so, people here are more about like, okay, let's talk about what you're feeling. But, again, culturally different. That's not where their mindset was. And so then people, sometimes in our school wouldn't understand why that behavior was coming about. And so then it's a little bit more like, oh, well, Mexicans are just like coming and fighting with everyone. But no, it wasn't that. It was just that, you have to understand that people were constantly moving back and forth and trying to find, how do I fit here? And, and other people feeling like they're coming in and changing our school system. But overall, I think a lot of people were so accepting and wanted to, like learn about this new culture that was coming into this school that, had never really had, I guess, color in it, and language. And so I think at the end, we all pretty much found, who we could be friends with and who was not quite comfortable with the change.
Well, change, that's the point of the series that I'm trying to do, and the videos that you guys are watching, is not to solve racism. That's a huge topic, but there are small changes that we can make. And for you, what would be one change that you'd want to see people make now?
Oh yeah. Okay, so I always remember this thing that happened in college. So I went to NMC, and I was in speech class, and by college I was like, okay, I need to get out of like the shy, like start talking, because my life is pretty boring because I don't speak, and I was just super shy. So I was like, darn, I'm gonna have to take speech. So I took speech, and my teacher was like in love with the Latino community, and so he was talking to me in Spanish. I remember I was like up, there doing my whole little speech. I was coming down, and he started to talk to me in Spanish. And so I was responding back in Spanish, and there was this young kid sitting in class, and he's like, "You're in America and you should be speaking English." And I had never heard that before, like directly like at me, and especially in front of like the whole class. So I was like just taken back. I didn't say anything. And the girl that would always sit behind me, she said, actually, we are in America, but so many people speak different languages, and you should learn another language, And so she just started going on and going on. And so I just sat down and I was quiet. And I was then surprised that the professor didn't say anything, because I was like, what the heck? And so I think that's like something that I think we all need to do, is that we need to speak up, and not a lot of people do it. I see a lot of people who just either stand there and pretend like you're not going to be seen, because, if this person, like when I'm at the store and I'm being ignored and I'm not getting the service, I would love for somebody to say, no, actually they were before me, instead of them going before me, because I've seen people that they're like, oh, can I help you? And then they just go in front instead of like speak up and say, actually, no, she's been here waiting, So, and I see that now more, that people are speaking up, but there's still so many of us. And I know it takes a lot. I know it takes a lot to be able to speak up, and more if people are going to be looking at you. And, if you're going against what that person may think or view, but that's what we need to do. We need to speak up.
I like that.
I like the change. Yeah.
I like that. It's not hard to stand up and just say simple truths. This lady was before me. This person was here before me, and I think that's powerful. And as much as it really makes me laugh when you hear statements like, well, I don't see color. And it's like, what? Because the irony is, the people that say that, the next statement they say is, but these are my 3 Hispanic friends. And it's like, well, how do you know they're Hispanic? Like, how do you pick that out? And so as much as I want and long for the day that we do live in a world devoid of sin, we live in a world that is segmented. And you live in a Latin world, and there are white worlds, and there are African worlds, and there are black worlds. And even in the Latin world, If you are Guatemalan or El Salvadorian, it's different. If there was one thing that you would want your white friends to understand about your world, what would that be?
Well, I would want them to know that we are not all migrant workers. We're, business owners, and we're homeowners, and we contribute, we pay taxes, and, not only our culture do we contribute, but you're getting one person that speaks two languages, and so when we are working, you should be, thankful that you have one person that can do the job of two, because you can communicate with more than one culture.
Hmm.
I know when I invite people to come over to our house, I've had people say, they drive right past my house, and I always know they're going to drive right past my house because I'll be out there, especially if it's a new person. And I've had people say, oh, I was looking for a trailer. And, that assumption that all Latinos live in a trailer. And it's like, and I've told them, I'm like, well, when we had this house built, I'm like, we bought the property, we had our house built. I'm like, we were all working out in the fields. And I'm like, and that's a job to be proud of, because you can be built with working out in the fields. And I'm like, but now, we own a business. And so, don't think just because one Latino, that's what represents all of us, because it's not.
I think that's powerful. And the other thing that I really want to tack onto that is, if you are a migrant worker or working in agriculture, picking crops, that's an awesome job. Like, we wouldn't have food without that. And it is a hard job. I remember, I think I did 3 weeks of picking strawberries at my uncle's strawberry farm, and it is not easy work. It is demanding work. And my grandfather used to tell us, he said, all work is honorable. Whether you're laying bricks, or whether you're a doctor, or whether you're a lawyer, or, somebody who's thinking through things, all work is honorable. And I think it's important, but you are right. Not all Hispanics are working in the fields, and not all white people are rich. And that's a challenge. And it's something that does tie us together, though, is that diversity is in all cultures. And so I appreciate that. I have one last very serious question for you. What is your favorite ice cream?
Okay, my favorite ice cream from like when I was a child to now, it's Superman. I just love that I can get all those colors in lane. I only pay for, one.
I would not have expected that. That's awesome. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope you are safe and that your family is doing well, and we will talk later.
Gracias.